Alright, we've got another castle here. This is the second castle I've made. There's another castle on the website that's a lot more basic than this one is. So I decided to make another castle for those of you who are wanting a more advanced look. If you're creating this for a pet lizard or tarantula, you want to make sure you're creating this for an expert climber. The other castle, the more basic one, is more appropriate for a bearded dragon. So lizards that can scale up a wall, this is appropriate for obviously tarantulas. But obviously there are those of you who are just building this because you've got an interest in castles and have always wanted to build one. So make sure you check out the more basic one as well. Usually the way I start off these projects is with a somewhat crude drawing, just to give myself an idea of what I want to do. You want to make sure you wear a dust mask, working with polystyrene. So I've got sheets of polystyrene here. Get these at any of your bigger hardware stores. So what I've done is drawn out a sort of floor plan on one of the sheets of polystyrene just to use it as a guide. And I'm building up, I think these pieces are about 4.5, 5 inches tall. But just building up the structure, you can see the shape of it there. And adding the side walls. What I'm using for an adhesive is Loctite's Power Grab. This is very similar to liquid nails, goes in that sort of caulking gun. So putting on the back sections there. What I'm doing here is tracing around the object onto another sheet of styrofoam. I'm going to cut out that exact shape, which will end up being the second floor. What I'm doing here is cutting out what will be the opening to get to the second floor, so the trapdoor. And I decided to create or extend the back of it a little bit. So you can see how it fits on top there. I've got to create another piece to extend that second floor. Go ahead and glue that on. And what I ended up doing was making a mistake as to where I wanted that trap door, that opening. So I'm just going to cut away part of that section and basically just move up that piece just so that opening is towards the front door of the castle. So you'll find yourself creating all these mistakes, or at least I do, and usually they're easily corrected. I'm going to glue on that second floor. And here I am putting in that little ramp, the what will in effect be the stairs for if a pet lizard or tarantula climbs up to the second floor. These pieces are just little design decisions that really serve no purpose, little protrusions from the side. What I'm doing here is cutting away, or cutting in half, a smaller piece of polystyrene to create these little stones that will edge out the front door. And gluing together the front part of the second floor of the castle. Got the sides on there. And putting in the base of the roof. So all of this can be glued together pretty quickly because that adhesive is so good. Let's see, I've got the roof going here. And what I'm doing here is cutting away the base of it at sort of a 45-degree angle so it can fit flush up against that top roof. And then I'm going to trace around that piece to create a piece exactly like it. So gluing those together, and basically they will end up facing each other, coming to a point in the center. And then I had to create some pieces to go on the sides of the roof. So with these pieces I had to cut all the way around, creating that 45-degree angle so that it could possibly be glued, as I'm doing here, flush up against the other pieces. What I'm doing here is tracing around a bottle. You have to decide how large you want those front towers to be. So cutting out basically a whole bunch of circles. Put those aside. Here's something I forgot to do, was cut out the front door. So this is something you can either do after the fact, or you can obviously cut out those doors before you glue those pieces on there. It would probably have been easier to cut them out before. So cutting out that window and gluing on more stones to edge out the window there. Here I've got some of those, or one of those circular pieces, and I'm going to cut sort of a Pac-Man type shape into them so that it can fit right up against the castle, sort of like it's going into it. And I decided to create a little bit more of a indentation there. So get that cut away and then trace around that basic, right angle shape over all of the other circles that I cut out. So gluing those together, and then I've got glue all over them at this point after they've dried. And you can see how it then glues flush up against the sides of the castle there. And this is just, again, sort of a decorative decision, not really serving any purpose. Sort of a thin couple layers that jut out a little further than what the tower does. Here I've got a little support beam. Just, again, another aesthetic decision. A couple of discs being glued on there. And then I'm going to put these little merlins, these little guys that are synonymous with castles. You'll see them at the top part of the embattlement. And gluing together another design decision where you can have the piece protruding vertically and then glue a whole bunch of merlins on top of it. With this, I'm gluing together a bunch of circles that get smaller as they go vertical, or larger as they go down. Putting glue just on the center of the circles and then gluing it onto a larger circle. And I'm doing that so that I can cut away without having to cut through glue. So I'll show that later. Set those aside and let them dry. Here I am gluing together those back towers. And I'm going to leave the bottom part of them open so that I can better be able to get grout and sealant in there. And if you've got a pet lizard, then you'd be able to retrieve a pet better if that bottom part is not blocked. So you can see how it's looking there, how it's hollow towards the bottom. Gluing on the front part of that tower, and then a little base. This part, these are just sort of little accents, pieces I cut out sort of at a 45-degree angle to create that sort of classic castle look where it goes all around the edges. And then a couple of pieces so the structure can protrude vertically. And that is the end of part 1. Now watch part 2.